Hey guys, how are you? I hope you're all doing well. So for today I wanted to make a video of a simple seascape, as you can see in the thumbnail, and also here as a reference I will be posting it in the corner and you will be have it throughout the painting. So I just wanted to do this video to guide you through the basic steps and tools needed to do this simple watercolor seascape. So let's start by the tools. So first you need three brushes. Now all the tools that I mentioned here, I will try to link them down in the description so you can see them. But you'll need a size 4 brush, a size 6 brush, and something like a size 8 or 10, or a mop if you have. So those are the three brushes that you need, and it doesn't matter if it's synthetic or natural hair, as long as they are good quality, good brand. On the other hand, for the paints, we will be using a cool blue. As you can see here, I have Prussian blue and I have squeezed some amount. If you're new with the tubes and stuff, you just need a bit, so like a size of 1p for example, you can put it on your palette, and I'm using a ceramic palette here. And the second paint that I have is lemon yellow. So this is also cool yellow, which is it tends towards the blue. If you don't know the difference between a cool color and a warm color, please let me know in the comment section below. I can do a separate video for this. And last, I have this third color, which is also from Daler Rowney. The brands are, by the way, student grade, so in case you don't want to commit to other high quality artist grade paints, I'm using Aquafine and Cotman, which is the most common, or you can also use White Knights, which is a bit better than these, or even you can use something like Van Gogh if you have. So back to the paint. So here I have Crimson Lake, and this is also cool red, and the mixture of these will give you something very interesting that you will see now, and it's very helpful to do. So basically, if you don't have these exact paints, I just need a cool blue, a cool yellow, and a cool red, and you'll be fine. Here I have water. You can have two waters. It's ideal to have two, one for washing your brush and the other one for picking up water. And I have a ceramic palette, but any palette will do. And for the paper, I recommend the best type of paper, which is cotton paper. Here in my case I have 19 by 14 centimeter arches rough paper. You can use anything between this size. It's good for like starting out and you don't want to waste paper, but I highly recommend that you go first buy good quality paper, then the other stuff for the brushes and the paints. So try to invest most of your budget on the paper, and I'll be doing a separate video for this if you would like. And this is 300 grams arches paper rough, but the same thing will do even lower grammage and even not rough, just cold press. So I have taped it without any pre-wetting or anything or even stretching. I just taped it, cut the paper and taped it, and I'll remove all this stuff from the table so that we start the painting process. I will start using the biggest brush that I have here, which is a size 8 brush, and you can even use a bigger size 10 or 12, or even a mop brush or a squirrel brush, which is ideal in this case, but I'm just keeping this simple and beginner friendly. And we'll discuss a bit about the painting. As you can see, if you look at the painting, you can see that on the foreground it's relatively dark, and as you go deeper into the horizon from the sea side, you will see that it gets brighter. Now in reality, the seascapes are not like this. It goes darker as you go deeper into the ocean and lighter as you go closer to it. On the other hand, how skies behave is it gets first it gets really dark, then it gets lighter as you go to the horizon, and this is also the case here. So the only thing that's different here is the sea. Usually the sea is darker on the horizon, near the horizon, and lighter on the near the foreground. but in this case there's the dynamic of the light from the right side, if you can see. So this is causing this effect of having a darker foreground, which is aesthetically pleasing. So we can start by first taking our brush, dipping it in water and trying to wet the paper as much as possible. Now, if you have a sprinter, for example, something like this, you can use it to sprint the surface. But in case you don't have any sprinters, it's equally possible to do it without any sprinters. You just have to use a lot of water, take a gushing amount of water and try to cover the whole space. Sometimes, as you can see here, a hair might fall out, so you can remove it and you'll continue with no problem. Try to using your brush to remove any hair that might come off if you have a new brush, because using your fingers might contaminate the paper, or some oils from your finger might cause some oils to be sedimented on the surface of paper, and this will cause some weird effects when you're painting. So I make sure all the paper is well damp and wet, and I leave it a bit, not a lot, so that it gets soaked in to the fibers of the cotton and they relax a bit. I'm not adding a heap of water, I'm just making sure that the surface is easy, so that now when we apply the colors it would have this very gradient and smooth transition, as we will see soon. So in the meantime, while this is trying to soak, and you can see here from the light, the reflection of light, it will gradually decrease and decrease, and you will see more the texture of the paper as the light reflects through the camera lens. So here I will start with the cool blue. You can use Prussian blue as I'm using here, or Phthalo blue, or Cerulean blue. The most important thing is try to make sure that you have adequate amount of paint before you commit to the painting. So make sure that you have adequate amount, and this will help you to have a consistent painting, because you will not have different colors in the aspect of trying to do a simple wash. So this is enough for now for the sky, and now I'll be using a bit of the red to darken it, to darken this blue and give it this purplish dark hue, and this will be useful for the foreground for the sea. As you can see, I'm not afraid here of mixing the two colors, because it's okay to mix the colors since it's water soluble and can be cleaned easily afterwards. So I make sure that my brush, as you can see here, this is more reddish purplish here, as you can see the color, and here it's more bluish. So let's start by doing the sky. Now, as you can see, the paper has rested a bit and soaked up the water, so we'll start by the sky. One important thing before you start, make sure that you have a piece of tissue lying around, because you will use this to dab the clouds, which is an easy way to create clouds. So we'll use our fingers and hand to decide which part or how much the proportion of the sky will be. So in this case it's a simple painting, so it won't be so dramatic. I'll just keep it simple. I'll do half of it sea and half of it sky. So I'll take approximately, I'll eyeball it, and approximately till here it will be the horizon line, and everything at the bottom will be the sea, and everything above will be the sky. So let's start at the top. At first you might see that this paint is dark in color, but don't be afraid, because there's a lot of water in the paper, and also there's a lot of water on the brush, so as it dries it will really lighten up the color, and you will really have a very light and pale blue color. So don't be afraid to put paint on your paper, especially when your paper is really wet, because all this wetness will actually dry at the end, and you will end up with a very beautiful light pale blue wash. So as you can see here, I have done the sky, and I'll just leave it now. I'll wash my brush, and I'll come now with my piece of tissue, as you can see here, and I'll try to dab places where I can see I want to create some clouds, as you can see here. It's as easy as that. You don't need any more effort to put in efforts or anything. You just have to just dab the pigment that you have laid down, and since it is wet, it would be really easy to remove the paint from the paper, since it's all wet and everything is easy to make. Now I'll also add a bit of clouds here to give it a visual interest, and then I will try to soak and remove all the water from the horizon, so that I will start painting the sea. As you can see here, I'm quite happy with it. I'll just add a bit. Now I'll take a piece of rag and I'll try to dry it. As you can see here, I'll dry my brush, and also it will be limp like this, and I will try to pick up some paint from some places, and this will give me finer control more than the tissue paper. And this dabbing technique, you can practice it before starting the painting, and it will be so helpful, especially when you're dealing with subjects where you're working a lot wet and wet. So as you can see, the marks that I'm laying with the brush is not as dramatic as the one with the tissue, because the brush is relatively wet, and it doesn't have this absorption power as much as a tissue paper does. So I can even come by here and even dab a bit more and do the final touches. Now that the paint is starting to dry, it's easier to do some smaller, and as you see, when I'm going closer to the horizon, the clouds are getting smaller and smaller, and also they are getting more packed to each other, and this is what we see. The farther we go, the closer the clouds are, and I leave it there. I'm quite happy with the effect. Now, while that all dries, I'll come in with this blue mix that I did with the red, and I'll put in the foreground of the sea, and I make sure that it's really saturated, and you can see the difference between the color now that it's drying up. You can see that there's a quite difference in the hue and saturation of the colors, and that's why you shouldn't be afraid of putting pigment at first, because at the end it will all dry up. So at the end, here, would like to wash my brush, and I want to have this gradient, so I come in with a cleaner wash, as you can see here. Try to go like this from outside to inwards till you reach the horizon, and I leave it there where I dabbed with the tissue paper. Now I can come in with more paint here and just dab in more color so that it will be darker, and I'm not afraid to just dab in paint, pure paint, and this will give us the ripple effect that we see in the painting, and at the end it will not be so harsh because still working wet and wet, so everything's gonna be so simple and washed out. So as you can see here, just doing this, and I just leave it there. I'll wash my brush to make sure that it's all clean, and I'll wait for it as it is now. I'm quite happy with what I reached. I let it dry, and I'll come back when it's fully dry. Don't try to mess with it now because you will start getting cauliflowers and this is not ideal. So just leave it as is and let the pigment settle and the paper dry out. And I'll be back when it's all dried out. So guys, I have left it to dry as you can see here, and the colors are really lighter as you can see. So I will go ahead and now do another mix of the same thing. I'll use the Prussian blue as you can see here, and my goal now for the second wash is to darken some parts of the sky, and on the other hand I want to add a bit of green to the sea so that it will give me this greenness. So I'm using the lemon yellow as you can see here with a bit of the Prussian blue, and this will give me this hint of green tint for the sea. And I wash my brush, and again I make sure that it's adequate enough, and this will be good. Now I come in this time in the sky as you can see. I dab in with my towel, and the reason I'm going with not wet and wet as we did first, because now that I have established the sky and the clouds, I just want to put some effects for the sky and darken it in some areas. And also, since not all clouds are flimsy and like bubbly, some have hard edges as you can see in the reference picture. So that's why I want to come in with a darker wash, but this time without pre-wetting. And I'm going to add a bit of texture, and as you can see, this is somehow lightening up the sky and making it more blue. At first it was more of a reddish blue, but now it's more of a greenish or a cool blue. So I add a bit of blue some areas, and this will help me establish these clouds. And I'm not afraid of doing some brush effects, dry brush effects, because at the end, as I said, not all clouds are fluffy and limp. Some have like harsh edges, some have soft edges, and this variation gives us a beautiful sky. And as you see, I don't want to go deep into the horizon. I just want to darken the sides of the painting where it is the farthest, I mean the closest to us relatively. So I'm not going to deal anywhere here. I'm just gonna do as far as we can and not be close to the horizon, because then that would not be as the reference as we can see. Now there's no problem in changing the reference to meet our needs, but in this case I don't want to change it, since I want to make it simple and beginner friendly. I want it to be close and not so far from the reference photo. At the end I am changing a bit from the reference. I'm deviating, adding some clouds where they aren't, but that's why it's called a reference, because you have a reference to refer to but not copy. But you can do a copy, that's another style, but for today's practice my goal is not to do with that. Okay, now that I'm done with the sky and I'm fairly happy with it, I'll add a bit of blue here. As you can see, I have washed it a lot, and just I'm gonna put a bit of hint that there is this connection between the horizon and the closest part of the sky, but not darken it, just so that we give the hint of blue, as you can see here. And I'll leave that much for the sky. Now I'll be moving to the sea, and for the sea, as you can see, I have done this blue and green mix, well, the yellow and the blue, which gives us this green turquoise color, and I'll add to it a bit of red to darken it, to darken the color, so it's mostly blue, the cool blue, and a bit of green and a tad of red. This is to make it dark. And I want to go here at the bottom, the closest. That's why I did I prepared a lot of mix, because I want a lot of paint, especially at the foreground of the sea, so that since it's really dark at the foreground, and no other way of having darks than adding more pigment instead of changing the color and making it like mixing the complement, which would kill the vibrancy, which is not advised. So now, as we're approaching the horizon, I want to do some brush. So as you can see, I'm washing the brush and I'm using the paint that I have laid to give some hints of some waves, as you can see. And I'll take the paint that I have prepared and I'll just dab, and as you can see, the closest the waves are to us, the bigger and the larger they are. But as we go farther to the horizon, they become thinner and more packed. So that's why here there are a couple of waves. We can see them prominently and we see the details, but as we go deeper into the horizon, they get packed and smaller. And that is my goal. I want it to look like that because this gives us the perception of depth in the painting. Now here I am using the dry brush. Again, I'm working with my biggest sized brush, as you can see. This is because it's relatively easy to cover a lot of dry brush marks, and I try not to kill all the white that I have preserved at the beginning of the painting, because that would be like waste of effort that we have put previously to preserve them. So now that I have just dabbed in, so at the end we just let our eye and our brain to complete the image. It's not always we have to put the details and everything for the painting to look realistic. Sometimes we just try to put as minimum as we can, and we expect the rest for our brains to hint on what should be there, as we can see here. Okay, now this is good enough for the first layer. Now for the sky, I don't think I'll go in again, but here I want to do some more layers. Since I want to darken it, this is the second layer. I want to make the transition more soft between the foreground and the background. So I come in with the just water, and I try to merge the shapes. As you can see here, they're merging, and this way is very helpful. I'm doing this wave shape, and this is like pre-wetting the paper and trying to move the paints that I have laid dry on dry. This creates somehow a more of a coherent look between the whole sea, so that it doesn't look like two pieces glued together. And this will give us a very nice dark and light feeling. I'm not afraid of going through the light places here with the wet wash, because it will not remove all the paint and activate it. And I make sure that the horizon line is as straight as I want it before I call it a day, and wait it to dry, so that I add the third and the last layer to complete our simple watercolor seascape. And that will be adding even more darks at the foreground, and a couple of darker waves on the background, or to the horizon. So I'll just not mess with it after I put this, and I leave it the same way we did, and I come back when this is fairly dry. So guys, as you can see here, I have let it dry completely, and I want to go in for the third and last step to darken the sea, and this will be the end of the painting. And I think it would be fair enough to stop there, because after that it would be like overworking it. So what I'll do is, first I will re-wet a bit of the sea. I don't want to disturb it a lot. I'm re-wetting it because I want the transitions to be relatively soft, and I want to mix a lot of greens in this one. So here I will be using the same Prussian blue I mean. With this time I will be adding more from the red and green, so that I'll give it the darker color and also the greeniness from the yellow. So as you can see here, I'm adding more red and more yellow than we did for the first time, and the mix is, as you can see here, it's like a dark greenish color, and that's what I'm aiming for. And now I'll come in at the bottom, the closest to me. I will do it as this. I'll do this XX marks, and this will have like wavy effect. Now what will I do is the following. After I am done, I will use the size 4 brush that I came here with, and what I'll do is I will dab in some paints with it. And I'm using the smaller brush because I don't want big sized waves, I want small ones. I want to have more control in my flow. I don't want to cover everything with this new paint. I just want to hint that there are waves, and they get smaller and smaller as it goes farther and the closer it is to the horizon. And as you can see here, the horizon I didn't wet it because I don't want the waves to spread as much, and that's my whole point. So as I go closer to the horizon line, what I'm doing is I'm putting in smaller and smaller and closer waves, as you can see here, and this will hint the depth of the sea, and it will give us a good perspective of depth, which is very helpful, especially in simple paintings like this, which are relatively simple, and there is not much to compare the sea like the waves to. And you don't have to overdo it. Just hint and let your brain or the observer continue what, like in the blanks, like fill in the blanks. I just want to hint small waves, and that here I want to make bigger ones, and I'll leave it there. Now you can make the sky even more dark, but I want this contrast between the sky and the sea. Now I am adding a bit more blue at the bottom here, just to give this dark feeling of the closer we are, the darker it is. And I'm still dabbing with some colors so that it won't be all. And that's it, guys. I'll just leave it there. I'll not mess around with it, and when it's dry I'll peel it off. So as you can see, guys, the painting is dry, and from doing 3 layers, as you can see, the darkest darks is what I want to achieve. And as you can see, related to the reference that you have been seeing me work from, you can see that the sea is way darker than the sky, which I achieved, and the horizon line, there is this light, the sky going from dark to light, and the sea also, which also I achieved. Now you can try this with me, or you can do it alone after I have finished, but this is fairly simple. If you need any questions, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to let me know. I can do other tutorials too, or other basic knowledge that you want me to cover. I'll be happy to cover. Please just let me know whatever helps you. I'm just here to assist anyone who is into watercolor and wants to get into it. So if there's anything I can help, leave them in the comment section below. You can check my socials, my Instagram. I post there regularly, and I'll be posting a picture of this while it's all, I remove the tape and it's signed. I'll be posting it there. So I hope everyone stays healthy, and if you have any questions, I'm open for helping. Bye.